Okay, thank you so much, Ashley. Welcome, everybody. My name is Carolyn Young. I'm the Executive Director of the Organic Council of Ontario. And this is a farmers market managers meeting about organic and organic claims. And with us, we have thank you to Ashley Redmond, the Communications and Marketing and Membership Manager of the Organic Council of Ontario, who organized this, and Joel Aitken from EcoCert. We're all going to speak today. So I'm not going to take too much time. Thank you everybody for sending in questions ahead of time, and feel free to send in any more questions along the way to the chat. So Ashley will be monitoring the chat. You can also send in your name, your pronouns, what farmers market you manage, and we'll be sure to be in touch. So we're also recording this call. So if you do not want people to know anything that you say, then don't say anything. But hopefully this recording will be available to everyone after today. So just quickly, we're hoping to keep lots of time for questions and answers. I'm going to give sort of an overview of the rules of organic and why we should care, as well as some rationale. And then Joel is sort of our expert on the organic rules, and he can answer any questions for you. Just a quick heads up, it is a little bit complicated in Ontario, so I will say that in advance, which is why it's great to have Joel here. So without further ado, I'm just going to get started. I'd like to say a quick land acknowledgement. The Organic Council of Ontario is situated upon the traditional territories of the Wendat, Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. And we encourage you to learn the history of the land you are in relationship with by visiting whos.land and nativeland.ca. Feel free to share your land acknowledgement in the chat. So I'm sure most of you have some ideas about what organic is, but I thought it would be a good idea to just start from the beginning and make sure we're all on the same page. So before I get started, when you think of organic, what do you think of? Just take a moment, think about it in your mind. You can even stick it in the chat. What's the main thing that you think of when you think of organic food? If you haven't already heard, that the organic standards we now know in organic foods were built on 4 principles. The principles are sort of codified by the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements, and it was sort of through a democratic process that these came about. There's the principle of health. Organic agriculture should sustain and enhance the health of soil, plant health, animal health, and human. Ecology, it should be based on living ecological systems and cycles, work with them, emulate them, and sustain them. Fairness, it should be built on relationships that ensure fairness with regard to common environment and life opportunities. This is written by Europeans, you can tell. And organic agriculture should be, with a principle of care, should be managed in a precautionary and responsible manner to protect the health and well-being of current and future generations. So using the precautionary principle. I think some of you might have heard of that before. So these principles have led to a broader set of guidelines that are codified in standards throughout the world. Most of the time, what it means is that there's no synthetic pesticides or fertilizers, no genetically engineered materials, non-irradiated, there's no artificial colors, flavors, or preservatives, and no sewage sludge. I mean, that's a one that you don't think of very often, and there's other regulations in place for conventional, but that's a big part of it. But also that we manage the agriculture in a holistic way, using recycling of nutrients as opposed to adding them in all the time. So using things like crop rotations, longer crop rotations, more diverse crops, and cover crops, etc., to bring in compost, to bring in to build the soil health. And the thought is that healthy soils build healthy plants, which help to protect them against crop pests and diseases. It's also about ensuring the well-being of livestock. In most cases, there are lower stocking densities for organic and requirements to be outside, and to have some some amount for ungulates of access to grass and pasture. Use of beneficial insects and compost are all part of it. Most organic farmers have to put together an organic plan that talks about how they will deal with crop pests and weed pressure. Some of the benefits, I'll just go quickly over those. You may have heard it's harder to make a case for higher nutrients in organic. There's sort of diverse studies that say different things about those, but we definitely see lower pesticide residues in organic foods, lower heavy metal residues, lower nitrates, higher fatty acids, higher antioxidants, and reduced antibiotic use in general leads to less antibiotic resistance. But there's lots of, holistic health stuff out there about how antibiotics and trace antibiotics can affect your gut health and your health in general. Without going into too many details, we also know there's lots of science to back that there's greater biodiversity in organic systems, both on the farm and around the farm, better for pollinators, better for wildlife, in greater plant diversity. And the climate question is one that gets debated and batted around a lot. But one of the biggest advantages to organic is that, especially when we've had some supply chain disruptions, is that there's no nitrogen-based fertilizers used in organic, which the embodiment of that is a lot of energy. All of the energy that goes into creating nitrogen fertilizers is not used in organic. And as such, there is a lower there's a lower carbon footprint, a lower GHGs, and greater carbon sequestration. Now, some people just say that because you have lower yields in organic, that means that the greater energy consumption per kilogram is higher for organic. But that's sort of there's a debate around that, because it depends on at what point in the organic farm's life cycle you're looking. There is evidence of greater yields the farther along the organic farmer is going, and also it depends on the calculations and which crops, etc. So another great thing is that organic agriculture protects waterways from leaching and pesticide contamination. It's also great for protecting farmers from the vagaries of climate change as they as we get more and more unpredictable weather patterns. There is some evidence that organic farms do better in drought situations than non-organic farms on average. These are all from IFOAM. You can look them up, and there's more evidence there. Finally, there's some economic and social benefits that we are aware of. There are overarchingly across different categories of revenue, organic farms do have a higher net profit, according to Statistics Canada. They employ more people year-round, which is both a plus and a negative in that you have higher labor costs on organic farms. There's also some research in the United States that shows where there are clusters of organic farms, those counties or those areas tend to have higher median incomes of lower poverty rates. There's obviously lower farm worker exposure to pesticides, and there's some evidence to show that there's younger and more diverse farm ownership within organic farms, which is really important as we look at farm succession. Yeah, and just to touch on this briefly, there's a lot of let's say that regenerative agriculture is kind of the new sexy term out there. And I think regenerative and organic are really mutually beneficial. So while regenerative agriculture is really focused on soil health and climate benefits, so organic agriculture is as well, although organic agriculture, in some cases, organic farmers are just getting to the minimum standard, and some are going well beyond, and some conventional farmers are going much further than their organic counterparts. So you can't really say one is always better than the other. But the one downside to regenerative agriculture is that it's just emerging. It's a growing movement, and we're really grateful for that, because I think there's a lot of good things that are coming out of that. But the definition is a little bit shaky, and as such, it can kind of be co-opted in some cases. But there is a really great regenerative organic movement as well, in case you're interested. So the organic, so out of all of this, all of the principles of organic and the whole idea behind organic and the organic benefits, there emerged a movement, and this movement has started, you know, with indigenous knowledge, you could say, but especially after World War II, when the Green Revolution was taking place, some farmers decided to go a different way. And as there became more interest in that, and that grew, the 1980s, some of these terms, the term organic started to become something that people could market. And then we had certifying bodies. And then as it grew and there became more potential profit in it, many countries started to create standards. And Canada, we had the Quebec and BC created their own standards before we had one in Canada. And in the States actually enacted a standard much earlier than Canada did. We only got our standard in law in 2009. And it started off under the Organic Products Act, but now it's under the Safe Food for Canadians Act. And those acts only cover products that cross the country's borders, so import-export, or that bear or cross provincial borders. But within a province, those regulations do not apply. So some provinces have actually enacted regulations within province as well. So I'll get into that a little bit more. But as the sector has grown, the opportunity for fraud has grown, and therefore those standards and enforcement have become more strict and harder for people to certify to. So in Canada, we have 3 sets of standards: the organic production systems, the general principles and management. That's basically your organic farmer's Bible. The permitted substances list. That's where all of the substances that are allowed within organic agriculture are sort of outlined and for what uses. It's usually just referring to the generic terms. So, for example, boric acid, but it might not refer to a particular product that somebody can use, like, I don't know, Joe's boric supermania crop thing. You know, you can't look up something that you buy, like Actisol chicken manure, to see whether it's permitted or not. You have to look at the ingredients in it. And then we do also have an aquaculture standard, which has more recently been enacted into law. So with these 3 standards, they're still part of the organic movement in Canada, which is really great. We have a very democratic process in order to ensure that these standards fit with what we initially envisioned organic to be, and that they make sense for farmers and for business owners. And unlike in the US, organic farmers, industry, and advocates have a say over the changes in their standards. So we have to actually update our standards every 5 years, or they get archived under the Canadian General Standards Board. In order for those standards to get updated, industry actually pulls together, and farmers and business people and consumers like yourself can get involved in the process to decide what changes need to be made. And so here we have the regulations. They refer to the standards, and the standards can also be interpreted by a standards interpretation committee. And they're enforced by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. And every year the standards must be reviewed. So every 5 years they have to be reviewed, as I mentioned. But anybody can join committees, the working group committees, to help improve the standards. And that's happening right now. That happens sort of on a 3 or 4 year time basis. And right now the working groups are working on them. And if there are questions in between those standard changes, the Standards Interpretation Committee, which are organic advocates, make those decisions. But as you know, the CFIA is in charge of enforcement, but they are also in charge of the conformity verification bodies and the certifying bodies below them, who are the ones who are in charge of inspecting. What this system does is it actually creates a more of a proactive approach to enforcement rather than a complaints-based. So in a complaints-based system, there might not be any audit record available for somebody who's inspecting from the CFIA to go in, whereas a certification body has already maintained the integrity or ensured the audit process is happening on every year. If the CFIA were ever to audit something, they are able to draw on the information that the CBs have been putting into place every year. I know if I might be losing some of you with my acronyms. Feel free to jump in the question and chat to let me know. So as I mentioned, if you're interested, this process is ongoing. You're very much welcome to get involved. And our next edition of the standards will be out in November 2025. So just quickly, what can you say when you have an organic product that is certified? So you can use the Canada Organic logo and the word organic on a product that has 95% or more organic content and has been certified. You can use the words contains X% organic ingredients for multi-ingredient products that are 70 to 95%. And you can use organic ingredients in a product on the label on the organic ingredients if it's less than 70% and certified. What can you not use? Well, you can't use the word organic without certification under the national regulations. So anything like organically grown, organically produced, farmed, certified, non-certified organic, any derivative organic cannot be used without certification officially. Certified organic is not acceptable. It only is certified by EcoCert or ProCert is acceptable. 100% organic is not allowed. Only 98% you could say if it was true and verifiable. And you can't say made with organic soybeans on your label. It has to be an ingredient in your ingredient list. What about in Ontario? So like we said before, in the province of Ontario, we do not have an organic regulation, which means that things that are produced and traded within the province of Ontario are not enforced by the CFIA under the Safe Food for Canadians regulations and the organic standard. But there is something available to use for false and misleading claims. So what it means is that certification is voluntary in Ontario for products that do not use the Canada Organic logo and that don't cross provincial borders. But the Food and Drugs Act and the Consumer Packaging and Labeling Act cover all products. So you still can't use the word organic without being able to demonstrate that your product is actually organic. So this is a very confusing situation because the definition of organic under these regulations, it's not referring to the organic standards. But I think CFIA expects that there is some following of the organic rules or that you are able to make some sort of claim that is organic. So you have to be following some kind of standard. And we can ask questions. So the Safe Food for Canadians Act Section 13 is what refers to the standards. What it says is that you can use the organic logo. It also applies to anything that products that cross the borders. You need to be certified to the standards and it's complaints driven. The other two acts are just about no fraudulent claims or misleading claims. So the word organic is within that act, but it's not referred to the standards. And it covers within province sales and it's complaints driven. So how does a farmer's market manager verify the organic status or make a complaint about the organic status of somebody? You can ask for their certificate. You can ask us, OCO. You can call their certifying body or check. Each certifying body has a database on their website that has the operators that are certified and have active certifications and the products that they certify. So even if somebody is certified, they may not have, they may not cover their livestock, for example, but they may only cover their vegetables. And So it's always, or they may have, you know, two operations and they have a conventional and organic. They are allowed to do that. Not on, but it's a little bit complicated. I won't get into that. It's confusing. You can also check, the CFIA has a website that shows all canceled certifications. So even if somebody has a certificate this year, they might drop their certification, or it might be canceled by CFIA. And there's a really great list on the CFIA's website of anyone who has had that happen, and it goes back several years, so you can look. We encourage you to, if you think that there's some major fraud happening, to let CFIA know, and you can let us know as well. All you have to do is file a report with CFIA. Okay, so what does this all mean in the context of the organic market? Why is it important to have certification? Well, we want to make sure that consumers are getting what they're paying for, obviously. But we also know, I know personally, examples where farmers market managers or other farmers have tried to determine whether a farmer that said they were organic actually was organic without the certification in place. And that hasn't gone so well, not necessarily. It's also not fair to other farmer vendors who have gone through the certification process to have somebody else using the organic brand, logo, all the marketing that goes around it, and to charge the same price without having to go through this pretty onerous process and expensive process. It also leads to a downward spiral, because if one farmer drops out, then another might drop out as well. Also, we're trying to build a movement. We're trying to build support for the organic sector from government. We're trying to show that there's demonstrate the impacts of organics, and without an ability to count the organic farmers who are among us, we can't demonstrate that impact, and we can't support the farmers who are out there. But without investing in the certification processes, I think that's part of what helps to build the movement, is what I'm trying to say. However, we know at OCO that certification costs and other challenges are leading to dropping of certification, and especially when markets are not doing well. So you can see here, certification numbers go up and down. Since 2012, we've seen lots of increases up into sort of a peak in 2018. And then it's kind of gone back and forth. It's been more stagnant until last year when there was some dropping. And we know that there's actually about 75 canceled certificates so far this year, and there might be more, probably will be more. And, you know, a lot of this is driven by the market. So at the moment, in a high inflation, high price environment where consumers are feeling squeezed and they have to trade out their organic products, we're seeing drop in organic sales. So these are the percent changes in the Canadian organic sales. And you can see that in 2023, there was a significant decrease. Usually we boast double-digit sales for organic, but it's the first time we've seen a pretty significant decrease. And you can see that even when the sales are high, it doesn't necessarily translate to more certification in Canada. And there's a couple of different reasons that this could be. One is the lag time it takes before people certify. Another is that there's more and more concentration within our food system, and so fewer operators might be producing more. And then, of course, there's also imports. A lot of imports are filling those organic sales. So some of the challenges we know are, I'll just go back, sorry, quickly, but there's some really interesting quotes here. Our current environment is confusing for certifiers, for consumers. It creates a disincentive for producers to certify, and there's a huge gap in who is certified. But it's also unfair that the cost of certification is prohibitive and that we could be penalized for advertising our products as organic, which they are. So some farmers, small-scale farmers, feel it's about fairness. They think everybody should certify. Others feel like they're doing everything right. Why do they have to pay when they can't afford it? Obviously, the big challenges, we've done a study on this before, 75% say certification is too expensive, and it's getting more expensive in this environment. Also, they say the paperwork involved. And then there's some other issues that come up. One is that it's harder for diversified smaller farms to certify. It's more expensive for certifying bodies to do that. The organic standards don't communicate their values anymore because they become corporatized in other places. Non-certified businesses undercut those who are certified, so why should they certify themselves? Certification system is too difficult to navigate and the regulations are too restrictive. Or, for example, there's confusion among the different, there's not a lack of consistency among certifying bodies, or one certifying body allows an input and the other one doesn't. So there's lots of problems with our certification system. We're very aware of that. And we know that the challenges are great. We also know that there's other solutions in other countries where government steps in to support farmers through these challenges. Unfortunately, in Canada, in our province at least, there isn't a lot to do that. So I see that we're at 7:27. I'm just going to rush through this. We have been advocating for organic regulation in Ontario, but we've also been extremely aware of what that could mean for farmers. We did a quick survey. I just wanted to let you know a while ago, where at least the farmers who answer our survey, most of them were in favor of the organic regulation, even those who were smaller farmers or non-certified, but they were wanting to see some supports along with that. So we are right now, the Organic Council of Ontario, we have some funds to do some public trust and education work, and that's why we're here. We want to make sure that people understand the importance of organic, what it's about, how it works, and why certification is part of that equation. We know that there are diminishing numbers of certification, and we want to see more and more people investing in local organic, not just imported organic. So we created this Ontario Organic campaign and logo, and we've invested in a website, directory. We have some farm signage for farmers and businesses as well. We're hoping to make some versions that can be used at the farmers market, but we also have some money to do more posters and fact sheets or other kinds of materials, educational materials for farmers markets. And we'd like to hear from you. What do you need? What is helpful? And as I end this discussion, we start a discussion and question and answer. I know a lot of the questions and answers are going to be about the rules as they stand, but I also want to say we are still trying to figure out how to support these farmers who are not certifying and recognize their contribution to the organic sector. Some of the things we've talked about doing are creating, while protecting consumers. So some of the things we've talked about doing are creating some questions for consumers to ask farmers at farmers markets, creating a sort of pledge system for farmers who wish to be part of the Ontario Organic Movement, where they have some education around the standards and what the standards require, and they have to, on a regular basis, annual basis, sort of declare that they're following those standards and that there's some way for us to track that. We've talked about some peer-to-peer kinds of certification process, or an online form that farmers fill out to show what they do for their organic practices. We've got some ideas, and we'd love to hear your ideas on this as well. So before I end, I'm just going to say a few questions to think about as we begin our Q&A. How do you deal with organic at your market? Do you say no organic signage unless you're certified? Or do you have some other way to recognize farmers? What are some of the comments you've heard about why people don't certify? Are they saying it's because they grow fruit and it's too hard for them to certify? Are they saying it's too expensive? What are some misconceptions that you want us to address? Should OCO or farmers markets advocate for small scale solutions or a subsidy? And how can we encourage the local organic market? So that's it for my end of things. I know we're at about 7:30. Joel, if you want to say anything in the meantime or correct any things that I said, you are welcome to, but I'd also love to leave it up for questions right now.
Yeah, I think you did a good job covering the introduction to it and kind of what the regulatory context is. Yeah, in terms of where the market is going, it certainly does seem like it is consolidating with those bigger brands that have that longer term commitment in terms of market, or larger market as well, that they're seeing value in maintaining that organic certification and that label on products, and not so much at the farmers market level. I think it is really a tough go in Ontario for farmers market level operations to make the organic certification make sense. Um, it's unfortunate, but it's just kind of where the economics and the system is right now. I'm actually traveling in Quebec this week for meetings at the EcoCert offices here. And here in Quebec, there are provincial auditors who are out at farmers markets checking that people are making organic, that if they're making organic claims, that they are actually certified, and actually taking samples of products and sending them off for analysis to see, are they coming back with pesticide residues or anything like that. And so there's a lot more knowledge, there's a lot more consumer knowledge on it, and push for people to be certified. So yeah, I'd
And
be happy to answer a question
as well.
Mhm.
Okay, I know that there was one question from, we started off before we got on here, from Tori about the specific, I don't know, Tori, if you want to ask your question again in front of everyone so that we can answer it, that would be great. And Joel and I will do our best to answer the question for you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. I just, I'll be quick. I have, as I mentioned to you, I'm at the Brampton Farmers Market, and we have one, one small farmer that is, has gotten some new signs toting organically grown. However, with some research, he provided a certificate for a farm, a different farm in Kincardine. So I called them to ask if he indeed did buy their product, in garlic in particular. And the answer was no in the last 2 years, but he did buy their seeds. So I think you answered, but we had to kind of end quickly. That, to my logical thinking, doesn't mean that that he can use the word organic in any way, shape, or form. Is that correct, Joel?
Not with a certification claim, not within the federal regulatory context. No, he would not be able to use the Canada Organic logo or put that on a label. The individual that is marketing the organic product would have to be certified by a certification body with a certificate for that product. Whether if they're growing that product themselves, or if they're manufacturing a product out of organic ingredients that they purchase. Just simply purchasing organic ingredients does not give them the right to use the certification status of that purchased ingredient as proof that they can then go and market the product they made as organic.
Right.
Even.
So just to clarify, sorry to make you repeat yourself if I am doing this, but he's not using the organic logo. He's not displaying a certification.
Mm-hmm.
He's just using, he's using organically grown in a sign, which is supposed to refer just to the garlic, but he's verbally telling people, and in accordance with the sign, people are thinking that it's organic. And just as an aside, unfortunately, I don't think the average consumer even understands what organic is, because there's so much misconception and so much, you know, big companies kind of steering people in the wrong direction. But anyway.
And this is something that I do quite regularly when I'm traveling for work, is go, if there's a farmer's market while I'm in town, I will go and wander and just talk to people, and especially those people that have the hand scrawled sign that says organic or organically grown or naturally grown or those kinds of things. And just I start asking them questions. My lead in is, so who's your certifier? and usually then they start backpedaling immediately. And yeah, it's again under the regulatory scheme. There's nothing we can really do under the Safe Foods for Canadians Act. In these cases, it would have to come under those false claims things. And if the operator feels that they are following the intent of the principles of the organic standard and the principles of the movement in their activities, it would be difficult to make a legal case to say that they're not organically grown.
Yeah, so basically, like what Joel is sort of trying to get at is the fact that we don't have a regulation in Ontario makes it more difficult to define organic. So if the farmer says, yeah, I purchased these organic from an organic grower and I grow them without pesticides or fertilizers in my garden, then it's going to be difficult for anyone to say whether it is organic or not. Did the person make sure that the land, it was not using any prohibited substances for 3 years? Are they using any synthetic fertilizers? Are they, growing from organic seed every year? Are they showing any kind of, like, what are they using for fertility? All those questions. And also there is within the standard sort of an intent that if you are growing in an organic system, that it would be, all of the things would be organic. Like you can't just pick and choose one crop. That's the intention of the standards, that it would be so I know when I went to the farmer's market, I went to a vendor and I said, oh, this is organic, tell me more about it. Is it your certifier? Or no, we don't have a certificate, but everything over here is organic and everything over here is not. What that vendor is trying to say is that they have sprayed this stuff and they haven't sprayed this stuff. But all the other pieces that go along with the organic system, I'm just not sure if that vendor knows what that is, right? So the answer is yes and no. If that vendor can show and verify that they are following the organic standards or an organic standard, then it is allowed. If they can't show it, then it's not allowed. But it's very hard for anyone to enforce it. So as a farmers market manager, it's your prerogative to say whether or not that's allowed at your market.
Yes, well, thank you. That clarifies it more. So I appreciate both of you. There is there is wording in the vendor's handbook for this year that there's no that farmers or anyone else are not permitted to use the word organic unless they're certified. So that's pretty cut and dried. So I mean, the thing is, to me, is that if he was following the rules, if he had the 3-year and 7-year, thing in place for pesticides and all that, then he would be happy to provide it, because it seems to me that that's something to be proud of. I do know, on the other hand, other farmers that have been coming to the market for way longer than I've been involved, for decades, some of them, that they're not certified because it's just too much of a hassle for them. It's too expensive. It's too, those are the kind of, just because that was one of the questions on your sheet there. I just wanted to point that out. And they're very well reputed, honest, great people. So I feel your struggles, and it must be really frustrating to try to get, 3 steps ahead without going 2 back.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I would just, I know you were also asking before we came online, why do they get their backs up so much about this, right? And I think there's a couple of reasons. I think, first of all, especially conventional farmers, often they feel like organic is saying that it's pitting themselves. Organic is saying it's better. Organic is saying we're better, and therefore conventional is worse. So I think a lot of farmers who see this regulatory system are like, you know, it's just a marketing claim, it's just a set of rules. And, you know, I am doing this without pesticides, or I think I'm doing it the organic way. Even if I'm not doing it the organic way, my way is pretty darn good. So why do these people get to charge more money? You know, I think there's a little bit of that, but also it is frustrating, I think, for many farmers who are making an effort to grow organically, as I mentioned in the slide, that they can't call their product organic without certifying. So I think, you know, especially with garlic is a crop that's quite easy to grow organically. And I think, you know, they may very well be doing it without any pesticides. They might be using, you know, fertilizers for all we know. That often people don't realize that that's not allowed within organic. So, but if that farmer, if you know, you wanted to change your policy, you could change your policy to say, and you'll provide us with like regular updates and receipts. So, you know, I don't think you want to get into that as a farmer's market manager to verify those claims, but definitely it is tricky.
Yeah, well, the decision's been made just because of I told you about my call to the other farm, that they won't be permitted to have their signs up anymore. So it's sort of, I have to be fair and consistent with everyone, right? And so that's the only, you know, the tourism manager, that's a decision that he made. So they won't be able to use their signs. And if I do see the sign this week, I can't go and say anything to them because they start screaming at me. So it's very uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. It's a very awkward situation.
Well, and that's maybe a case where you might want to contact the CFIA, where it would be something where at least if the CFIA got involved and decided, you know, I mean, it's a very small claim. So whether or not the CFIA would really want to get involved, I'm not sure. But if you did, it would at least have an educational element to it, right? Where you go through and you wouldn't have to get involved. So.
Yep. Yeah, well, hopefully it's solved, but I do appreciate you taking the time to hear and answer my questions.
Ashley, I know we had some other questions that were sent ahead of time, but I also want to encourage anyone who's on the line to, like, whether it's questions or just stories you want to share with us, we'd be happy to hear you.
My name is Margaret Appleby. I'm not a market manager, but I am the chair of the Cottington Farmers Market. And I find when customers ask me, the only question they ask me to sort of determine if I sort of fall in the realm of organic is, do you spray? And I say yes. Even if I was organic, I spray. I'll be spraying sulfur, I'll be spraying biologicals, I'll be, you know, that kind of thing. But they're not interested in me starting to give them a lecture on that. They just want to know if I spray. And then, so I just say no, because it's not worth it. It's only 3 hours. And I find that if you charge more for organic, that's fine. Whether you're, you know, certified or not, but it's what the market will bear. And right now, people are not interested in paying a lot of money out there for groceries. It's kind of a high-end market. We've got lots of sort of entertainment going on as well, but people are still feeling the pinch economically. And so it's what the market will bear. The guy who has the organic beef probably isn't as busy as, say, somebody who doesn't have organic beef. I think he's certified. He's doing all the things right. But to me, it's what the market will bear. And people are not interested in everything that organic does. They're not interested in what I do. They just want to see good product on the table, and that's local. You know, I'm not bringing it in from the food terminal or that kind of thing. it's a local thing. Where's your farm? What you do? Blah blah blah. So unfortunately, until there's more information about organic to the general public, I don't think you can expect a premium for your product, even though it costs you that much more. So that's just how I see it.
I think you're right. And I think one of the reasons why, like, we've been through this before, you know, the 2007 and 2008 recession, where there was actually, you know, a decline in organic market sales. And I believe that impacted certification as well at that point. I don't have the data right in front of me. And you're right. I think that, you know, consumers also do require some education, which is why we're hoping that you can share, you know, what you think would be helpful. I mean, your point about the sprays, there's a really great graphic from the Organic Trade Association in the States that shows, okay, well, these are, so yes, organic farmers do use pesticides in some cases, or biologicals or whatever. But here are all the tools that a conventional farmer can use, and here are the tools that the organic farmer can use, and they're a lot more limited in scope. And so it can put things into perspective. But thank you so much for your comment, though. I agree. Like, I think often consumers are looking for convenience, taste, price, and organic claims are only one part of that. And especially at this time in place.
There's also, I mean, you've got the regenerative group out there and where it's coming, but there are also the ecological farmers that are fairly strong. And I'm sure that they're in the moving in the continuum of organic and in crop protection and stuff. But and they can have a sign that says, I'm a member of the ecological growers, and I'm not sure that there's any restrictions on having that signage. For somebody who understands what ecology is, that sounds pretty cool. So, and it sort of takes away from going to the grocery store and seeing all this organic corporate stuff. It makes it a little bit more, I don't know, feel like it's natural, local kind of thing as well. So I think you're up against that as well.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything like, I don't think we are necessarily advocating for more certification at the farmers market. We just, I think it is a question mark for farmers market managers around what is the value of the organic claim at farmers markets, and should we stick to the certification method and standards? And if not, what is the alternative? And the alternative is, you know, that's what we're trying to come up with. But maybe it's, you know, maybe it is just a trust-based relationship, but maybe it doesn't use the word organic, and that's okay, you know? So that's a big question for everybody.
Interesting. Yeah. It's in 3 hours, how do you sort of be the enforcer on a lot of this stuff?
Well, you can't be,
You
right?
can't.
So that's what the certification sector is there for. Like, we are the third party that should be trusted to make those assessments. And that's because the buyer or the middle, the reseller or whatever, they can't be expected to understand what's happening in terms of that production chain. So that is where the value of certification comes in, is to make that assessment of, is this a system that complies or not? Yeah,
But I think, sorry.
I've had producers and stuff say, well, don't you trust me on this? And I have to remind them that, no, I can't trust you. That's my job, is that I can't trust anything you tell me until you prove it. so that then everyone else can trust the certificate that you're going to get at the end of this process. So it's the job of the certification part there is to not trust the claims so that everybody else can.
But to Margaret's point, I just want to say, Margaret, I think one of the questions I have is like, what can we do beyond certification to support farmers who want to tell the story of what they're offering? And yeah, I think what Joel is saying is true. Like we can't. It's a difficult, even within the certification system, there are ways for people to get around it, but it's becoming more and more difficult, which is why certification is becoming harder for people to do. But yeah, what are the things that we could do to help people help you as a farmer educate your consumers better, or in line with what you do? You know, is there some sort of resource that we can support you with, or showcase your practices on our site, or you know what I mean? Like have the questions available for consumers to ask.
Yeah, I mean, you could have sort of, you know, are you interested in organic? Well, these are the things you should ask somebody you're going to market if they're really like keen, this is organic. That might be something, as you said, to educate the consumers. Yeah, that's fair. I just see the whole thing as a continuum, and professionally, I was in the pest management realm, and I see that the organic movement and the ecological growers have pushed the whole continuum about how you deal with crop protection and fertilizer, cover crops, all that kind of stuff, has pushed the I don't know what you call it, over to more of a holistic kind of system. So there's some benefits to the public and to the environment that is beyond just what organic's doing. It's really getting everybody to think in broader, in more of a comprehensive look at how you're going to deal with it. So, but we're talking about farmers markets. So, but I don't think the public really realizes that we're not spraying DDT anymore, guys. And but
Yeah.
and we're really gone way over to a more holistic, regenerative, organic kind of approach. It doesn't matter who you are, whether you're certified or not.
Yeah, just to echo, I think there's sort of an irony in a way that the organic movement, by virtue of having the limitations, has forced people to innovate, and those innovations have helped support have either knowing the consumer awareness of the push has moved research in the direction. I think all farmers want to reduce sprays and toxins on their farms, et cetera. But it has moved in that direction, which has narrowed the gap between organic and traditional agriculture because of all of the innovation that has happened as a result of consumer awareness. So it's kind of an irony that those continued investments in organic and regenerative agriculture are going to help to continue to push all of agriculture in a way. But as it catches up, there's less of a premium and a market driver.
Yeah, and is that the main goal of organic, or is it to protect the environment?
What, to have a premium? I mean, I think it's a market-based solution to support organic, and that was the original intent, was that it was a private claim because there wasn't anything out there that was protecting consumers against some of the things that were being used originally, right? So yeah, so I think the intention is, and the intention of all agriculture is to improve and improve environmental impacts and health impacts for everyone. It's just that this market-based incentive helped people to move in that direction. I think I have heard, and I didn't include this in one of the quotes, but I have heard from organic farmers who have undergone certification that they learned a lot through the process as well.
Sure, sure, yeah.
Educational process as well. And I mean, there's investments, for example, because we have an organic sector, we can also push for organic science focused, science focused on organic, which, we wouldn't be able to do without the investments that are being made.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make sure that we have 3 minutes left. I know, it's late and people probably have, a little bit of, there's some discussion going on here. I don't want to, I think Margaret and I'm sure others, there are some, maybe if you're feeling like I'm over, if you're feeling like you have some diverse opinions or some other opinions to what I'm espousing, please feel free to say them, because it's not like I am very aware of some of the contradictions and problems that are in the organic sector right now, as well as, that divide between conventional and organic.
You want to do one of the pre-submitted questions and then maybe we'll wrap? Okay. So I think maybe you covered this in your presentation, Carolyn, but we are moving pretty steadily, so maybe we can circle back and answer it. Question is, does the market manager have the authority to directly contact the governing or the certifying body for a status update on the individual if the producer provides evidence of an outdated certification?
Yeah, so I can answer that. So probably the best case to do that is to find the list of certified operations by on the website of the certifier and check the status there. Especially those lists should be live and up to date at the present time. And so if you know the name of the operation that you're looking for, it should be pretty easy to find that status without even needing to contact the certifying body directly. So I don't know if OCO has a list of links or whatever to, well, the CFIA listing of the certification bodies has the direct links to all of the websites, because there's not a master list, but
we can send those out with the recording for this. And we also have, I don't know if everyone is aware, but we have a directory on our site. The Organic Council has a directory. We're trying to keep it up to date, but it is probably best, if you're worried about the actual certification status, to go directly to the certifying body's website. But if you're just looking for organic producers and businesses, you can look on our site as well. And then I also mentioned that the CFIA has a canceled operators list. Catherine, did you have, I don't want to put you on the spot, but do you have any questions that you've heard before that you want to ask before we go?
Thanks. I enjoyed listening to your presentation and certainly some of the questions that were brought forward. I think the most important thing out of this is to make sure that our market managers and leaders are aware of where to look for the council certification, going to the different links. It's about the message coming from Farmers Markets Ontario to our members, allowing them to take a minute to take a look at what's available to them, rather than blindly just saying no. What are their resources available that they can actually reach out? FMO can't answer many questions, but specifically on organic. So I think that part is important for us to deliver that message. And I think that the point of organic producers at markets should be featured, as well as the farmer should be embraced by the consumer. And it's a matter of promoting all farmers, whether they are obviously organic or conventional, but more importantly, the education on organic to the consumer is sending out messages, you know, whether it's social media, just snippets of, you know, what it's all about, and pushing that ability to feel comfortable asking when they go to a market, you know, and talking, and for the consumer to speak to the farmer, and whether they are organic or not. So it is kind of complicated, but at the same time, it's just awareness of the differences between an organic and non-organic, conventional, and it's all good, you know, like Margaret said, it's all local, and everyone's trying to do their best to grow the best product in Ontario, you know, locally at their farms, from their farms. And I think that's the most important value at a farmer's market. But when problems occur, and the misuse of the word and how to deal with that, I think it's important for markets to be aware of who they can contact, and you know, and get some answers on how to handle it. And that at their board level, at the board level of the market, that they can include some rules around allowing the use of, not allowing the use of the word organic without background information. I think that's it.
Okay, well, thanks everybody, and thanks for joining us in this late moment in the evening. And we really encourage you to check out our Ontario Organic site and our website for more resources. And we'll hopefully be working with Catherine to develop a few more resources for farmers market managers and to have at your market. Ashley, did you want to say any last words?
Just that I popped a quick feedback survey in the chat. If you have 2 minutes of time, not even 5, just to do that short survey, we'd really appreciate it. Yeah, and that's about all. And there are our email addresses if you want to get in touch and chat more about all the stuff we've talked about this evening.
And for sure, we can help you get in touch with Joel if you have questions there.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much.